and some are conditional. So they should be used for in conditional situation only. Now, why these are recommended or should? When this will be a recommended one, when the benefits clearly outweigh the risk and burden, or risk and burden clearly outweigh benefit. So either there is clear cut benefit or clear cut risk of development. So they will recommend either to go for this treatment or recommend not to go for this treatment. And also most of the informed people make the same choice and benefits are finally managed. Wherein in conditional cases, there will be most people will choose the recommended course, but a substantial number may not choose the similar recommendation. And secondly, they recommend that in this case, a good decision should be done, or in particularly talking with the patient values and discussion with the patient relatives and patients. And for this recommendation, quality of evidence can be anything. So now we'll come into a quality of evidence. So each key question is complemented by one, the strength of recommendation, as well as what is the quality evidence for this particular recommendation. So what are the quality of evidence? The grades are high. High means when the factor is, that is the true effect is very likely to lie close to the actual effect. So that means the quality is very high. When they will call it a high quality evidence, when there is at least 2 or more good randomized control trials or meta-analysis of such type of trials are existing. And when it is a moderate evidence, when one well-conducted RCT or meta-analysis of such trial, or more than 2 RCT but with some weakness, or more than 2 strong observational studies with consistent findings are there. So the idea is that the true effect is likely to be close, but there is a possible that there could be a difference from the true effect. Then coming to low. Low is when the RCTs are having either weakness or there are serious deficiencies and bias, or observational studies more than 2 which has inconsistent finding. So the description is that the true effect may be substantially different, and also there is a possibility that in subsequent study the effect which is now evident can be altered or opposite. That means when some treatment which is now saying that this is a good treatment, for subsequent study may say it is a bad treatment. So there is a possibility of alteration. And lastly, expert opinion. Expert opinions are based on the clinical judgment and experience, and usually for expert opinion, at least 90% threshold of agreement is required to go for a recommendation. For others, it is 75%. Now these are the questions that were they tried to answer. That is the key questions. One is.
The last one, expert opinion. Will be go ahead. But I think my question is, can it compete with this RCT and these things? Because there may be selection bias, there may be.
No, they cannot be compared. So they did not give importance, but there are certain situations where you don't have RCTs. So some practical situations, I will come to there. So in that case, expert opinions are recommended because most of them are recommending it. Now the key questions, I'll go into detail, but the key question first one is related to postoperative radiotherapy when it is required with or without systemic therapy. The second one is mainly definitive radiotherapy with or without concurrent therapy, and when you consider hysterectomy after radiotherapy. Key question 3 is on when IMRT is appropriate. Key question 4 is on postoperative or definitive radiotherapy when indication, what are the indication of brachytherapy. And key question 5 is all about brachytherapy. What is the optimal dose fractionation? What should be the imaging technique? What should be the OAR constraints? And what is out of scope for this discussion or this guideline? They have excluded carcinoma in situ histologies other than squamous cell C or adenocarcinoma, like this small cell carcinoma, neuroendocrine tumors. These are not included. A role of novel agents are not included, and also role of surgery or chemotherapy outside radiotherapy when it is not used with radiotherapy is beyond scope of discussion for this particular guideline. So before going into the particular guideline, what do we need? Some basic things, that is the staging. I am not going into the staging and upgrades in FIGO 2018. Just to show one thing, that if you see this 1B3, this part, yes. So 1B3 was previously 1B2 when it was more than 4 centimeter in size. So either 1B1 or 1B2 was described as either less than 4 centimeter or more than 4 centimeter. But here it is 1B3 is described as more than 4 centimeter. So as this guideline was developed after the FIGO 2018, so now all the previously studies which has treated 1B2 as locally advanced are now 1B3. They are told us 1B3 because it is more than 4 centimeters. Now, apart from this staging guidelines, the surgical radiological findings which we need to see when the patient is a post-operative one. The most important points, often some pathological labs may miss, but some points are mandatory because we need to take decision based on this. So these are the tumor size, which is important, and then the extent of cervical stromal invasion, that is according to the depth, that is either in superficial third or depth, deeper third involvement. They have lymphovascular invasion, so involvement of lymphovascular space invasion. Then what is the parametrial status, whether positive or not. Then the margin status, which include both parametrial margin, vaginal margin, then vaginal involvement status, and lymph nodal status. So these are important because we have to find out, we have to decide on to adjuvant therapy. Now, based on that, we'll come to the key question 1, that is post-operative radiotherapy with or without systemic therapy. The question is, following primary surgery for cervical cancer, when is it appropriate to deliver post-operative radiotherapy with or without systemic therapy? So 2 questions basically. 1, when to give radiotherapy only, when to give radiotherapy with concurrent chemotherapy. So now let's see what does this PICO say. So P is the adult patients with cancer cervix. I is the intervention, that is the surgery, or that is post-operative patients. Surgery is done, either you are going for radiotherapy or radiotherapy with chemotherapy. What is the comparator? So you compare radiotherapy with post-op radiotherapy with observation after surgery only, or post-op RT-CT with local RT only. And what are the outcome here that we will be seeing, whether this is related to overall survival, local control or regional control, and distant metastasis or not. Yes. So now coming to the answer. So when a patient comes after surgery, either this patient have could be a group of who has underwent radical hysterectomy with lymph nodal dissection, that is the definitive surgery for this stage, or it could be a patient who has undergone total hysterectomy only, and this finding is incidental or occult. So you did not know whether the patient has cervix or not. Now it comes with CS cervix, which is quite a common and practical problem. Now for the definitive group, you know all the pathological findings we need. So by their pathological findings, we can group them into low risk group, intermediate risk group, and high risk group. I'll come to this later. But for the patient who has underwent only total hysterectomy, often there is lack of data to classify into intermediate or high risk or low risk. So it's okay if we have all the data for classifying it into high risk or intermediate risk, they can be considered as high risk or intermediate risk. But if they don't have sufficient histopathological data to classify them into this, so this will be as risk factors unknown or inadequate histopathology. So there is separate guideline for this group. So coming to the definite group. So patient who has underwent definite surgery, the high risk criteria is positive margin, lymph node positive, and positive parametrial invasion. That we know is also known as the Peters criteria. The recommendation is the whole pelvic radiation 45 to 50.4 gray in 1.8 gray per fraction, concurrent cisplatin 40 milligram per meter square weekly. What is the strength of recommendation? Strong. That means we have meta-analysis and RCT for that. Sorry, the strength of recommendation strong means it is clearly the effect is near the true effect, and quality of evidence is high. That means we have more than 2 RCTs and good RCTs and meta-analysis. So let's see what evidence we have. So evidence we have is first this Peters criteria. We basically find out this risk factors. was a positive pelvic lymph nodes, positive margins, and microscopic involvement of parametrium who were eligible for this study, and they found progression-free and overall survival are significantly improved if patients are receiving chemotherapy, and the hazard ratio was 2.01 for the CTRT arm and with a significant p-value. So by that we found the PITAS criteria. And what was the benefit? Benefit is with overall survival and progression-free survival. Overall survival and progression-free. Let me handle it. So benefit is overall survival and progression-free survival. And magnitude of benefit is absolute benefit of OS at 12% and PFS of 16%. What are the limitation? It was seen this concurrent chemoradiation was associated with more grade 3 and grade 4 toxicity, that is 17% versus 4% without chemotherapy. And what type of toxicity? Mostly they are hematological toxicity. So we have clear-cut benefit with some morbidity. And what else comment could be done? That is the effect of concurrent chemoradiation in this post-op setting. The effect is similar to CTRT versus radiotherapy alone when if you consider it as a locally advanced carcinoma. So the similar effect of concurrent chemoradiation with locally advanced CS cervix. So this is what we have. Apart from this PITAS trial, what else we have is the Cochrane database, which was published in 2014. This Cochrane database also said they had these RCTs, multiple RCTs, and they compared adjuvant therapy, adjuvant chemoradiotherapy versus no adjuvant chemotherapy. And the authors concluded addition of platinum-based chemotherapy to adjuvant radiotherapy improves survival, may improve survival with early stage cervical cancer and risk factors for recurrence. But it is associated with severe acute, increased risk of severe acute toxicity, which we have already seen. Now coming to some additional comments. Is there any role of additional cycles of adjuvant chemotherapy? Well, in the PITAS trial, they had cisplatin and 5-FU 4 cycles. So they have 2 cycles of chemotherapy followed by 2 additional cycles of cis-5-FU. But currently, there is no sufficient data to say that there is any role of adjuvant chemotherapy after chemoradiation. Now there are ongoing trials. One of which is phase 3 randomized trial, that is RTOG 0724, which they are giving paclitaxel 4 cycle followed by the concurrent post-op chemoradiation and 3 weekly paclitaxel. We have to wait till the result comes. Now coming to the next group, that is the intermediate risk. Now, how did this intermediate risk come? I'll come to the recommendation later. Now, how did this intermediate risk come? The first, in 1990, this GOG group, GOG 49 trial, they found some prognostic factor in the postoperative group, which could predict predict the outcome basically. And what they found in the node negative patient of 545 node negative patient, they found that DFI correlated strongly with depth of tumor invasion. That means the more the depth of invasion, which could be in millimeter or could be in according to the third of cervix, that is 1/3 cervix, mid-third cervix, or deep third cervix, or limited to tumor size 3 centimeter or more than 3 centimeter. So both these 3 criteria was related to, and along with that, positive capillary invasion, that is lymphovascular invasion. So all these criteria led to the more or the present of more tumor size or more deeper invasion, all LPSI was related to that was a bad prognostic factor. So based on this group, this criteria, Alexander Sedlis is the first who randomized basically in 2 groups who have these high risk features into one group received radiotherapy, one group did not receive radiotherapy. And they found that there is a significant risk of recurrence reduction of 47% in patients who are having with radiotherapy, who are having this criteria. From there, we get this criteria, which is known as the Sedlis criteria. I'll come to that later. Similarly, the same finding was also further supported by the Cochrane review, who also showed that combination of pathologic risk factors are thought to represent sufficient risk for recurrence, and they justify the use of postoperative pelvic radiotherapy. However, there was no, in this Sedlis group, this study was not powered to go for a survival analysis, and there was no survival benefit. But the Cochrane review showed that there is lower risk of disease progression at 5 years. So with that, I'll come to the SEDLIS criteria. So how to go for the SEDLIS criteria? I mean, how to remember this? I don't know how easy it will be to remember, but I have some trick to remember it. So just a minute. Okay. So just remember, we have two numbers to remember it. One is 3, one is 1. 3 and 1. These are the two important numbers to remember SEDLIS criteria. And we'll go from worse to better. So for LVSI, you find 3 and 1. So you write 3 pluses in the first 3 group. 3 plus and 1 minus. So first 3 will be plus. What? 3 plus, that means LVSI present and not present. Then we have stromal invasion. We go from worse to better. So deep third invasion, deep 1/3, 1 and 3, deep 1/3, then middle 1/3, then superficial 1/3, and lastly either middle or deep 1/3. Now coming to tumor size. For tumor size, for the first it will be any. The next one, it is the second row. So you write more than equal to 2 centimeter. Second row, 2 for second row. Then you have 3 and 2, 3 and 1. So you add 3 with 2. So next one is 5 centimeter tumor size. And the last one, you then minus 1 from 5, it is 4 centimeter. So ultimately this is, all these are intermediate risk group. All this combination are intermediate risk group. So the recommendation is whole pelvic radiation 45 to 50.4 Gray, 1.8 Gray per fraction. What is the strength of recommendation? It is strong, and quality of evidence is high. I have already shown the quality of evidence. Okay, so benefit I have already said, it reduces recurrence, 47% recurrence reduction, 12.6% absolute reduction, and no impact on survival, as I have already said. Okay. And limitations, acceptable morbidity 6% versus 2%, grade 3 or 4 adverse effects. Okay. Now coming to additional comments. So any role of concurrent chemoradiation in the intermediate group? No strong evidence till date to support concurrent chemoradiation in this group. There is ongoing trial of RCT GOG, it is a randomized trial, GOG 263, which is comparing adjuvant CTRT versus radiotherapy alone in this intermediate risk group, and we need to wait for this trial result. Now coming to the third part, that is occult cancer cervix after total hysterectomy. So what is the recommendation? Now these patients basically, if they are more than stage 1A2, they need further treatment because a radical hysterectomy with PLND is required, and you have done only total hysterectomy. So that means they will need some further treatment. So what could be the further treatment? One could be the additional surgery, that is parametrectomy and upper vaginectomy with pelvic lymph nodal dissection. Now, often this second surgery is difficult to perform, and patients are not willing to do that. For this patient, you can consider radiotherapy or concurrent chemoradiation. Now, when you will give concurrent chemoradiation, you have the high risk pathological factors, or radiotherapy only when you don't have this high risk, but you have this intermediate pathological factors. Now, they also recommend that you can give boost to the area because you don't know, you don't have the idea about margin or parametrium. So you can boost with EBRT or vaginal brachytherapy after radiotherapy or concurrent therapy based on the site of occult disease, if you find. And how can you find the occult disease area? Because you can do a postoperative CT scan or PET scan to identify residual, local or nodal disease after surgery. Strength of recommendation, no strength of recommendation or quality of evidence, because this is a practical problem and you don't have any RCT or any further studies to support it. So this was our question number 1. Now coming to question number 2, that is definitive radiotherapy with or without systemic therapy, and when is it appropriate to deliver definitive RT with or without systemic therapy, and when is it appropriate to perform a hysterectomy after radiotherapy for cervical cancer. PICO is same for that, cause, local control, regional control, and distant metastasis. So coming to locally advanced CS cervix, now you see the FIGO stages 1B3 to 4A is called the locally advanced squamous cell carcinoma. Recommendation is radiotherapy plus concurrent cisplatin 40 mg per meter square weekly 5 to 6 cycles, pelvic or extended field RT depending on the para-aortic nodal invasion 45 to 50.4 gray 1.8 K per 50 per fraction plus additional nodal boost, and that followed by brachytherapy. So what is the evidence? I'll not go in detail of this evidence because this is beyond this scope of this guideline discussion. So basically in 1999, the NCI announced that concurrent chemoradiation should be the standard of care for locally advanced CS cervix based on the 5 positive randomized trial, phase 3 trials, which all of them showed survival improvement, and 2 meta-analysis. One is the Cochrane database meta-analysis by John A. Green, which was published in Lancet 2001, had 4,580 patients and 21 trials, and 19 trials we improved overall survival and progression for survival 16% and 12% with significantly more toxicity. And it was updated in 2005, which showed that, which included further 5 more trials, and they showed that the absolute benefits persist, continues to persist as 10 to 13% OS benefit and progression-free survival benefit. Similarly, another Canadian meta-analysis by Luca et al. Was also showed the same kind of benefit. So I'm not going into detail of this trial. So what benefit we have with concurrent chemoradiation? Improved overall survival and local regional control. What is the magnitude? Magnitude, if it is 10% at 5 years, and limitation, there is acceptable morbidity, but there is high morbidity. And now comments from the group is that you have to complete the treatment within 7 to 8 weeks. And also what is the role of parametrial boost? The parametrial boost is declining because we have better brachytherapy now. So we don't need parametrial boost anymore. And you have to give special care when you are treating extended field radiotherapy. I will come to that in KQ3, because for special extended field radiotherapy, they are more prone to develop neutropenia and bile toxicity. So IMRT is the choice, and you have to repeatedly see the blood counts, and you may consider stopping chemotherapy after 4 cycles and not give beyond 5 cycles because of the high chance of toxicity. Okay, now few additional comments regarding definitive therapy. So what choice of cisplatin, weekly or 3 weekly? Yes. Okay, so what is the additional comments? Weekly versus 3 weekly cisplatin. Generally, weekly cisplatin is the most commonly given concurrently, but there is ongoing trial which is known as TACO trial, which is trying with tri-weekly cisplatin versus weekly cisplatin, 75 mg per meter square. Now, any role of new systemic agent or newer combination, some combination with cis5 weekly, 3 weekly with additional adjuvant cycle has shown some promising results, so it is under investigation now. Whether can carboplatin replace cisplatin? In some studies, or in poor tolerance where cisplatin is poorly tolerated, or in kidney patients with nephrological problem, carboplatin is tried. And in some small retrospective studies are shown that carboplatin has got similar result as cisplatin, but a meta-analysis published in 2018 that showed that there was poorer overall survival and PFS with carboplatin compared to cisplatin. So cisplatin remains the standard of care. Any other systemic agent or combination used in cervical cancer? Gemcis compared to cisplatin alone in one study showed progression-free survival and OS advantage. But this study included 2 additional adjuvant cycle of gemcitabine and cisplatin. So whether the effect was due to the adjuvant cycle or due to combination of gemcis in concurrence was not established. So for that, there was one more RCT who basically tried with gemcis concurrent only, and they have omitted the adjuvant cycle. But this trial was stopped because there was no benefit was found with gemcis. And lastly, whether any role of consolidation chemotherapy after CTRT, the Outback trial is trying to answer with adjuvant paclicarbo after conventional CTRT with some novel agent. I think it's tyrapine, and we need to wait for the answer. Now coming to the role of hysterectomy. So is it routinely recommended after conventional chemoradiation? It is not routinely recommended. So why? Because in many cases we see for like esophagus or rectum where after neoadjuvant chemoradiation we go for surgery. But for cervix it is not recommended. And the evidence is very high evidence, high quality evidence. At the same time, the strength of recommendation is very strong. Now why? Because the pelvic control is very high with radiotherapy and brachytherapy. So you don't need further therapy to improve the control. And secondly, if you see the evidences, there is no survival benefit with adjuvant hysterectomy. So this was a trial which is known as GOG-71, who basically compared between radiotherapy with or without extrafacial hysterectomy in bulky stage. And they found there was no clinically important benefit with use of extrafacial hysterectomy. Another study from which is known as GYNECO-2, this study has to be stopped because of the poor accrual and the 61 patients they could accrue found there was no role of completion hysterectomy with no therapeutic impact of completion hysterectomy. So no role. And rather, if you use hysterectomy after CTRT, it is associated with more toxicity because of the combined nature of treatment. And it was seen in this particular study, which was published in 2016, that 5-year DFS or OS was not improved with hysterectomy, but it was significantly associated with more late morbidity, which is mainly bladder related. So coming to the recommendation, so there is no role of hysterectomy. But unfortunately, there will be few patients who will be non-responders. So how to identify these non-responders? They are recommending at least you wait for 3 months. Give 3 months time to respond. So after 12 weeks or 3 months, you can go for a PET CT scan to find the not responders. And also you need to confirm the disease persistence at 8 to 12 weeks by biopsy if you find clinically the disease is persisting. What to do for non-responders? You can go for salvage hysterectomy or exenteration for this group because this will improve local control and survival, but at the cost of significant morbidity. So only go for hysterectomy when you have non-responders. Any additional comment? Yes. Early disease with 1A1 or 1B2 who are actually candidate for surgery, if medically inoperable or refusing hysterectomy, can we go for radiotherapy? Yes, we can go for radiotherapy, but use of concurrent chemotherapy in this situation is untested because we don't know what could be the effect of concurrent chemoradiation, whether it is beneficial or it will add to more toxicity only. So the strength of recommendation for this is conditional, and the quality of evidence is here expert opinion only, because you don't have that much of study to support or reject the theory. Because you don't suppose a patient who is medically inoperable, sir, your answer. Suppose a patient is medically inoperable and or refusing hysterectomy, but he's an ideal candidate for hysterectomy. So now you don't have enough data to support radiotherapy for this patient, but you know you have to do something for this patient, and that is based on expert opinion. So you cannot deny the treatment for him. This is expert opinion. Now, any role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy followed by hysterectomy, it is still that it is not recommended, because in a 2018 published trial, it was found that chemoradiation was superior to NSCT followed by hysterectomy in terms of survival. So there is no role of NSCT followed by surgery.
So stage 1B2, that is based on the previous staging.
This is based on the newer staging.
So previous COG trial included 1B2.
Because a 1B2 was more than 4 centimeter in that case. But this is particularly for this.
One B.
This is less than 4 centimeter 1B2. There are studies where this 1A1 the almost equal type equal result from both group. I mean this surgery or radiotherapy only, either brachytherapy or brachytherapy with EBRT. Brachytherapy will be the main part with EBRT. Very late cases. Now coming to key question 3. So when is IMRT appropriate for carcinoma cervix? So you can see here the objective is now the outcome measure is different for this PICO. That is either you have to see toxicity, patient reported side effect, or QA, because IMRT is associated with improvement of this thing. It's expected that we'll have improvement in this thing. So first, post-operative setting. So post-operative setting either with radiotherapy or with CTRT. Recommended IMRT is recommended in this situation. What is the evidence? The strength of recommendation is strong. Quality of evidence is moderate to low. Moderate for acute toxicity, low for late toxicities. What benefit we have from different dosimetric studies? We have decreased dose to wear, nearly bladder, rectum, bowel, and bone marrow. And also it reduces patient-reported GI and urinary toxicity. The only phase 3 randomized trial, which is also known as TIME-C, they compared post-op CS cervix and endometrial carcinoma. They compared between conventional radiation with IMRT, and they found it was basically a patient-reported outcome. And it was found that patient definitely reported better tolerance and less GI toxicity with IMRT. So that supports the treatment with IMRT in post-op situation. Problem with IMRT is resource and availability. Now coming to definitive situation where you are treating the intact cervix, whether to use IMRT or not. So here IMRT is conditionally recommended. That means it is not, the strength of recommendation is not high as post-operative therapy. Why conditional? First we'll talk about the benefits. So in terms of benefit, they decreases acute and chronic toxicities, definitely. And especially in special situations when you are treating the para-aortic chain or you are doing dose escalation for pelvic nodes, IMRT is important. And also it has shown to have late gastrointestinal and urinary toxicity, but there was no DFS or WACE improvement with IMRT over conventional radiation. So what are the evidence? So this trial, this was a meta-analysis of IMRT, which was published in 2018, and they showed IMRT and conventional RT demonstrated equal efficacy in terms of WACE and DFS. So that means WACE and DFS wise, there is no difference, whatever dose you may give. But IMRT significantly reduced acute GI and GU toxicities and chronic GU toxicity in patients with cervical cancer. And this study was from AIIMS. And this was a prospective study with randomized study with 44 patients, and they showed basically whole pelvic conventional radiation with whole pelvic IMRT reduces significantly fewer grade 2 acute gastrointestinal toxicities and grade 3 acute gastrointestinal toxicities, and also less chronic gastrointestinal toxicities. So all this leads to points to a better toxicity profile with IMRT. And lastly, this INTERTEC-2, where PET-based image-guided IMRT was used to spare the bone marrow. The primary endpoint was to see the acute grade 3 neutropenia and clinically significant GI toxicity within 30 days. They also showed a significantly more toxicity with the historical control. If you see with the historical control, significantly lesser toxicity with IMRT. So all these studies can say that yes, the toxicity profile is better, but there is no DFS or WACE benefit with IMRT in definitive setting. But there are certain problems with IMRT in definitive RT setting. There is significant intra and interfraction uterine movement, which is difficult to incorporate in the PTV. So you have to be very cautious about PTV, and you have to generate this ITV thing. Because of the movement, there is more chance of geographical miss with IMRT in definitive setting. And there is problem with rectal and bladder filling. And and it is IGRT is necessary because you have to see the uterine movement. You have to generate this plan of the day situation. Yes, sure.
Because একটা জিনিস হচ্ছে IMRT setting IMRT তো conditional দেয়া আছে, and the other Indian trial presented by Shukya of TMH, they showed that although everyone knows that there is no OS advantage, but the toxicity was much less in a
Toxicity is much less.
So why it should be conditional? That is my question.
Conditional means you have to have this facility also. That means you have to do IGRT, you have to see the movement, you have to consider the PTV, and secondly, if the cost is a factor in India, I think. So if there is no DFS or waste benefit, the conditional means you have to talk with the patient about the risk and benefit ratio. So you have to talk with the patient that this is the risk, this is the benefit, now it is your choice. You can give the patient a choice. If it is a recommended, you can say the patient, this is better for you. But for this, you have to discuss with the patient. That is the conditional recommendation. So,
it is a group.
So basically, this is the CT and MRI planning. CT and MRI planning, and you can see the uterine movement with in these two different in the same patient in different days. So there is significant interfraction and interfraction movement, which has to be considered for IMRT treatment. Now, a few comments. That is when irradiation of para-aortic chain or dose escalation for intact positive nodes. In that case, IMRT is better. You can boost up to 55 to 65 gray to the intact nodes, and if there is smaller nodes, the SIB technique can be used because they are most likely to respond. But if there is larger nodes, it's better to go for sequential way, and especially when you are using with chemotherapy and concurrent chemotherapy with para-aortic and nodal boost, it is better to use IMRT because that will significantly reduce the toxicity. Now coming to AQ4, that is brachytherapy. So when brachytherapy is indicated, again the idea outcome is overall survival, local control, toxicity. Now, radiotherapy for cervix, definitive radiotherapy for intact cervix, brachytherapy is an integral part. That is recommended as an integral part. What is the strength of recommendation? Strong. We all know this. But as you see, the quality of evidence is not high. It is moderate because we lack data of randomized control trial because brachytherapy is established since ages for it. So we don't have randomized trial who has compared brachytherapy without brachytherapy. So the evidence is moderate, but the recommendation is strong. It consistently improves outcome, high control rate with acceptable toxicity, and it improves survival over IMRT and SBRT boost. Let's see. That is, this is a National Cancer Database analysis of radiation therapy consolidation mortality for cervical cancer. The impact of new technological advancement. So they have done a study over a period of January 2004 to 2011, and they have seen how with the emergence of IMRT and SBRT, there is decline in use of brachytherapy and increase in use of IMRT and SBRT in this setting. But when they have compared the result, it was found that IMRT or SBRT boost resulted in inferior overall survival. Hazard ratio was 1.86, p-value less than 0.01 as compared to brachytherapy. In fact, they commented that the survival detriment associated with IMRT or SBRT boost was stronger than that associated with excluding chemotherapy. So if in a locally advanced cancer, if you don't give chemotherapy, the benefit you lose, it is you are losing further benefit if you don't give brachytherapy and give IMRT or SBRT. So brachytherapy is more important than giving concurrent chemotherapy basically. So limitation, resource and facility, somewhere the facilities may not be available. And the comment is that neither SBRT nor IMRT are suitable substitute for brachytherapy, and it should be only for ineligible patients with complex medical factors. Even the patients who have complete medical factors and not suitable for, maybe in one center not suitable for anesthesia or sedation, this patient has to be referred to tertiary center where you can have more equipment to give brachytherapy. And also, if you need it, you can have this interstitial technique or other things to give optimal brachytherapy. Now coming to post-operative. When you give post-operative radiotherapy, post-operative brachytherapy for this group, the strength of recommendation is conditional because we don't have much data on post-operative brachy after EBRT, and only one trial which showed, which is a big trial, which showed survival benefit of adjuvant brachytherapy after hysterectomy with positive surgical margin. It is again a national cancer database, and though only 45% patient received brachytherapy, it showed advantage of 3-year overall survival from 71.9 to 79.4 in patients who have received brachytherapy after external beam radiotherapy, and all these patients were vaginal margin positive. So, and this is the survival curve for 3-year overall survival, and also after propensity score matching, the benefit persisted for positive vaginal margins. But interestingly, in this trial, I did not find the dose of the brachytherapy, which is the ideal dose of vaginal brachytherapy after EBRT for cervix cancer patients. And apart from vaginal margin, if you have positive parametrial or paravaginal margin, if you have positive macroscopic margin somewhere which is not amenable to by vaginal segmented cylinder, which is most commonly used, one cylinder, you can use multi-channel cylinders, you can use interstitial needles, or you can use EBRT boost when necessary if the places are not amenable to brachytherapy. Okay. Now lastly, we are coming to the last question, that is, what is the brachytherapy technique? What is the optimal dose fractionation? What is the optimal imaging technique? And what is the OAR constraint? So question 1, what is the optimal imaging and technique? Recommendation is intraprocedural imaging is recommended. That is, a recommendation is strong, but evidence is low because it is not that much performed probably. The benefit is IGBT improves local control. Image-guided radiotherapy improves local control, and it is shown altered pattern of relapse. That means when image-guided radiotherapy is used, it is seen that the relapse pattern is more towards systemic relapse rather than local relapse. That means image-guided brachytherapy is associated with more local control. In contrast to 2D or 3D or 2D or point-based prescription. And also, this intraprocedural image reduces risk of perforation, especially if you use a translectal ultrasound or real-time USG. And what is the recommended volume-based planning? Either MRI or CT-based. Both are standard. The advantage of MRI is your superior visualization of cervix and soft tissue. But if you use CT scan, where doses are similar, where volumetric doses are similar, but CT scan may overestimate tumor width, especially when there is parametrial extension or the size of tumor is higher. But you can use either MRI or CT. If you don't have volume-based prescription, you can use 2D or point-based prescription. And what are the benefits? I have already mentioned: improves local control, different pattern of relapse, and reduces grade 3-4 toxicities in CTRT patients because of better dose pairing. So this was a trial with RETRO, which is also known as RETRO-EMBRACE. This was based on the EMBRACE study in retrospective analysis, where 731 patients and for analysis, they found there is excellent local control of 91%. And WACE of 74%. And if you compare with the WACE or local control of 2D brachytherapy, it is actually more, which is this 91% is actually more than the 2D brachytherapy. And there is limited severe morbidity, and also found some prediction that those to 90% of the clinical, the high risk CTB, that is D90, are the predictor for better outcome. I will come to that subsequently. And it is also showed that only intracavitary application may have some limitation, especially when the disease is bigger and when you have to achieve the D90 for CTB-HR. You can use interstitial therapy. It allows better dose distribution and lesser late morbidities. So supplemental interstitial needle may be used. MRI is better. MRI and CT I have already told about. Now coming to what is the optimal dose fractionation. The most common dose fractionation used in USA is 6:5 following 45 gray EVRT, and in European countries usually it is 7:4 following 45 gray. And these are the target volume. I'm not going into the target volume. What are the recommendation? The equity to 10 is to be more than 80 gray. So as we are moving towards a volume-based therapy rather than the point A-based, so now the recommendation is moving to volume-based therapy. So this is the equity to more than 80 gray, more than equal to 80 gray is recommended. And for volume-based HRCTP D90 should be receive more than 80 gray. And in selected cases, which is conditional, that is poor responders or tumor more than 4 centimeter, adenocarcinoma stage 3, in that case D90 may be more than, if you can achieve D90 more than 85 gray, that will be better. And for that you can use hybrid intracavitary technique and interstitial technique, which improve dose distribution as well as decreases the OAR doses. 19 colony. It's mainly based on USA and Europe. And they are using a 45.
They are using 45. That's why we are giving 7:3 after 50.
And this is the this is the total dose mentioned over here. Both of them are receiving more than 80. So just to support the data, that is D90 and this EMBRACE trial, and this one, I mean this RETRO-EMBRACE trial, which found that the D90 to the high risk volume was significant for local control, and if you give more than 85 gray delivered in 7 weeks, provides 3-year local control rate of more than 94% with limited size. The last point, that is optimal wear dose constraint. So either you go for volumetric contouring of wear and dose, or you go for 2D point based when you don't have volumetric dose. So interestingly, you can see the ideal dose constraint for rectum is for D2CC is less than 65 gray, which is quite low, and it's very difficult to achieve with point A based planning probably. So that's why you need image based planning. And for bladder, it is less than 80 gray. However, the maximum dose is 75 and 90 for D2CC. And why? How this came? This came from the EMBRACE study that the fistula risk, if you see, the fistula risk is 12.5% if D2CC receives more than 75 gray. 12.5% risk at 3 years, which is in comparison, if it is less than 75, it's probably 2.7% or below that. So it is very low if you go for it is less than 75 gray. And if it is vaginal stenosis, also if the rectovaginal point, which is basically 5 millimeter, a point 5 millimeter behind the vaginal mucosa in the position of mid vaginal source, there is 20% chance of vaginal stenosis if the patient is receiving more than 765 gray to the rectovaginal point. And for the sigmoid and bowel constraint, there is minimal evidence till date because all are based on expert opinion. There's 70 gray in D2CC. Now, often we come to a situation when we cannot meet the dose constraint and at the same without compromising the coverage. So, what to do in that situation? So, the ASTRO recommends that you have to give priority to control of tumor and coverage over dose constraint. So, you may discuss with the patient, but you have to give priority to coverage over where dose when such arises. This is the result from EMBRACE study, which I have already said. So coming to the conclusion and summary. So question 1. Okay, so question 1, postoperative radiotherapy with or without systemic therapy. So we know postoperative radiotherapy will be indicated when there is intermediate risk based on the set list criteria, which is basically LVSI, tumor size, and stromal invasion. So based on that, we decide whether this is an intermediate group or not. They will receive only radiotherapy. If we have positive parametrial invasion, positive margin, positive node, we'll go for concurrent CTRT. What is definitive RT? Definitive RT is for 1B3 to 4A. All states should receive definitive radiotherapy with concurrent cisplatin, extended field 40 milligram per meter square for 5 to 6 cycles. Whether to go for hysterectomy after RT, there is no recommendation for hysterectomy after RT. Only go for hysterectomy if it is a non-responder, salvage hysterectomy. When to use IMRT? For post-operative setting, IMRT is indicated and recommended. For definitive situation, you can go for IMRT based on considering the situation, and especially when you are using nodal boost or extended field radiotherapy. Now, post-op or definitive therapy. What is indication of brachytherapy? Brachytherapy is indicated for all patients. And
indicated for all patients only in definitive setting.
in definitive setting, brachytherapy is indicated for all patients. In post-operative setting, the recommendation is is lack of data. Yes.
2 years back, even we are giving routine brachytherapy after ERT.
Yes. So they recommend that only if there is vaginal margin positive, you can go for brachytherapy. And
in practice, will you not give
no,
and lastly, brachytherapy technique for definitive RT. Just last question. Yeah. So brachytherapy technique for definitive RT, image guided brachytherapy is recommended. If volumetric brachytherapy is not available, you can go for 2D or point A based planning. Optimal dose fractionation, I have seen the dose EQD2 more than 80 gray is recommended, and the imaging CT or MRI based planning is recommended. And if needed, you have to take help of interstitial to complement the intracavitary dose. That's it. Thank you. I'll be happy to take any question. Thank you.
One question is there from Dr. Tasneem. The question is, if only adjuvant RT is planned without chemo, no brachytherapy is recommended. If only adjuvant RT is planned without chemo, no brachytherapy is recommended. Is it a question? Can you please repeat your question, Dr. Tasneem? So someone is asking to repeat the portion of the Sedgwick's criteria.
Okay, so this is the Sedgwick's criteria. Basically, you have 3 points: lymphovascular invasion, stromal invasion, stromal invasion, and tumor size. So how you will do it? You have to remember 2 numbers, 3 and 1. So LVSI, you go plus, 3 plus, 1 minus. Then you go from the stromal invasion, deep third, middle third, superficial third, and in the last part is deep or middle third. And for T size, you start with any. Then for the second row, you come with 2 centimeter, then add 3, make it 5 centimeter, then minus 1, then make it 4 centimeter. So any of this combination, that means positive LVSI with deep third invasion, positive LVSI middle third with more than 2 centimeter, positive LVSI superficial 1/3 with more than 5 centimeter, or deep or middle third invasion with more than 4 centimeter are patients who are intermediate risk and will go for adjuvant radiotherapy only.
So Dr. Prabhakar has asked if there is any role of adaptive radiation.
In which setting? So in radical setting, if you have a huge node, basically only huge node, in that case, if you after started planning, if you find that at 4 to 5 weeks of after treatment, there is a reduction of the node and it's coming into the alternate risk, you can do some adaptive radiation. But otherwise, and the image guided the brachytherapy is already an adaptive one. But for EVRT, only usually for the nodal stage, when there is a huge node in pelvic node, then you can go for adaptive only.
Someone has asked how to decide the bladder and rectal point in brachytherapy.
So either you go for ICRO point or you see the recommendation by ABS, you get the bladder and rectum point.
Dr. Tasneem's question was, sir, if only adjuvant RT is planned without chemotherapy,
Huh? Oh, ICRO is bladder. Okay.
Dr. Tasneem had asked, sir, if only adjuvant RT is planned without chemotherapy, can brachytherapy be omitted according to this guideline?
Only adjuvant radiotherapy is planned if you don't have a positive margin, I mean, if there is a positive vaginal margin, then you have to go for concurrent chemotherapy, and at the same time you will go for brachytherapy after radiotherapy.
The next question is from Dr. Abhirup. Stage 1A1 and 1A2.
On incidental finding, patient not willing for radical hysterectomy. Can we treat by ICBT alone?
So yes, there are. Give me 1 second. So patient. I'd like to show one slide. So is it showing? So you can see their guideline. According to their guideline, if the patient is not operable or patient refuses, you can go for brachytherapy plus minus EBRT for 1A1. For 1A2 is EBRT plus brachytherapy.
That's it. So there are no more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Then we are closing the session. Thank you so much.